Yo people, Philip Blank here, and today on Started Up we have this beast of a car, the Dodge Challenger SRT Demon. With its 6.2 liter V8 in the front, putting out a whopping 840 horsepower, this is one of the most exhilarating cars I've ever driven, and something I'm super stoked to share with you guys here today. So without further ado, let's get into it. Announced in the fall of 2017, the SRT Demon was released in a time when there was a bunch of hype going around how fast EVs could become. The Porsche Taycan had just been announced, the Tesla Model S Plaid had not been released, but that's when the ball started rolling on the push for gas's old news. Dodge wanted to do a big oorah to the V8 and show that there is no replacement for displacement, and the engineers at SRT were tasked with coming up with a machine that could do a quarter mile in the 9s and then also pull a wheelie. What they came up with was the Dodge Demon. So the real question is, how did they do it and what exactly did they do? The engineers at Dodge started with a 707 horse Hellcat, stripped out anything with excess weight, did a full engine and driveline overhaul. They put a wide body kit to cover up the fat Nitto tires that are on all four corners, these massive drag radials. So starting with the aluminum hood, the Dodge Demon features the largest production hood scoop on a car with 45 square inches of air intake here on the front, and also the front left headlight is an air ram that feeds directly into the cooler. A lot of people say the right side is as well, but if you look in the right side, it's capped off. The left feeds into your filter placed right here. Now for the fun part of the car, the soul of the machine, the massive 6.2 liter V8 Hemi up front. Now, it might be simple to think that they just took a Hellcat, added a bigger supercharger onto it, and that is where all the power came from. Now, they did go from a 2.4 liter to a 2.7 twin screw super on the top, boosting the pressure by 20%, but the rest of this engine is 62% different than the Hellcat's 707 engine. So that means they changed over half the components in this engine to be able to get it to support the extra 133 horsepower being pulled out of this thing. In addition to that, they increased the fuel pump pressure to be able to run the 100 octane. And they also added a sensor in that's detecting the octane of the fuel. So if you're not running your 100 octane fuel, it's going to disable the extra horsepower and prevent any knock from running that lower fuel. Also a production car first, when you enter drag mode on your console on the inside, the intercooler here starts taking refrigerant from your AC system. It starts chilling your intercooler to drop the temperature up to 90 degrees for your supercharger. And then wild with all this engineering is, it's fully covered by the warranty. So this insane race engine, protected by warranty for the first 5 years, 60,000 miles. Nuts. With all the subtractions, the Demon's curb weight is 4,255 pounds, which is 216 pounds lighter than the Hellcat. And with all this tech being pumped into a drag masterpiece, production was kept to a total of 3,300 units, 3,000 in the US, and then 300 going to Canada, where these cars are being made. Now the MSRP came in at $86,000, and when you purchased it, you had to sign a paper showing how much over MSRP you paid. And this was Dodge's way of saying, okay, if you pay at MSRP, you get early in the queue, and then everybody who paid more and more pushed you further down the line of when your car would be produced. One of the most entertaining parts of this car I find is how Dodge set up the accessory system when you put your order in for this vehicle. Now Dodge worked really hard to strip out every extra pound it could across this vehicle, such as pulling out the speaker system, pulling out the rear bench, carpet liner in the trunk, and even the passenger seat. Now, obviously a lot of people want their passenger seat, so if you were going to opt in to get your seat installed back in, $1. If you want the rear bench in the back, $1. You want your carpet in the back, another $1. Now, if you want your speakers back, that was a $1,000 upgrade. And then the really funny part, if you wanted a sunroof, it was $5,000. So this was Dodge just being coy, saying, hey, we don't want the weight in here. If you're gonna ask to get it back, you're gonna have to pay for it. Now, another $1 accessory was the Demon Crate, and it came with your VIN and your name on the box, and then inside it were all of the components that could not be legally sold with this car as a production car. So in there, it has the skinny wheels up front for your drag strip. They're not street legal. Sell them off the car so it's not a part of it. Also in the box, you have a snap-on impact wrench for changing out your wheels, and then a new programmed ECU that you swap out your current one, along with a lower console cluster, which had the ability to be running 100 octane race fuel. If you did not install this new ECU in that lower cluster, you would not get the full 840 horse, being limited to just a measly 808 horsepower. Now at this point, the last call Demon 170 has been released, and that's bringing a whopping 1,000 horsepower to a very similar package. And a lot of people on forums are saying, oh, well, this is now is irrelevant because it's not the top dog. This car is still phenomenal and just insane. As mentioned earlier, the defining part of this car is the massive hood scoop from the visuals on the outside, along with the wide body kit, putting the 12.5 fat tires on each 4 of the corners. You also have the Dodge Demon emblem there on the side, but the rest of the body is pretty much the same as the Hellcat. Just got those big old drag radials. Look at that. Incredibly deep. So the goal of that is to be able to, when you wear your rear tires out, swap your front ones in. You have an extra set of tires there. Then when you're at the track, you can put your skinnies on and then have 2 sets of rear wheels for the day. Thankfully, they kept the backup camera on here. They didn't minimize that. Down here, we have a little button. The trunk is surprisingly heavy. Lifts up there, and we do have the carpet liner installed on this. And then underneath here is the big old battery to power up this monster engine. And on the left side, you got the 2 subs for the Harman Kardon system. Inside the Demon crate, there is a foam insert that fits directly into here. It holds your skinnies, all your tools, everything ready for a track day. Now this car does have the matte option on it, going along the top, the hood, and the rear, and that was an extra accessory that you could add on to the Demon. Now you do have the wireless button unlock there on the door. Hopping inside, really wide doors. Watch when you're getting out at gas stations or hitting other cars. Long body. Inside we have a surprisingly plush interior on this guy. The seats are pretty nice with the combination between the Alcantara and the leather. Pretty plush, it feels like a boat when you're driving it. I think it's a very attractive gauge cluster. You have your digital speed right there in the middle, and then you have your 2 analog RPMs and speed on the sides. And then also that middle button has pages and pages of different menus, what you could have up on this display. It's quite impressive. So now that we've done a full walkthrough of the car, let's go ahead and start this baby up. Be starting off here nice and slowly and legally. And when you first drive this car, I do recommend using the black key, which is limiting you at the 500 horsepower, and then the red key is bumping you up to the 840 or 808 if you don't have race fuel in, which can be hard to find. So this is a pure rocket, and it's not sophisticated, but it is fast. Golly. Now they did remove a lot of the insulation in this car to reduce weight, so you can hear the whine of the supercharger incredibly well in here, and it's just a beautiful sound. Gosh dang, the Demon is fast. It is mind-blowing that they can control this engine to have just the key controlling whether it's 500 or 840 horse. That means the ECU is capable of adding 340 horsepower to however the engine is running, just with the detection between the 2 keys. That's an entire Porsche engine just thrown on top of your already insane 500 horsepower engine up front. That's nuts. If you drive this car for the first time, be incredibly cautious of how much power is here. It will take nothing to get your back end off the road and into a ditch, so be careful. Now included in the 3-year bumper-to-bumper warranty and the 5-year powertrain warranty is your 8-speed automatic transmission. Same transmission from the Hellcat, but they did add in the trans brake, which is a handy setting on the actual strip, holding up the RPMs and then releasing your right hand to get that extra launch. Not really practical on the road, but it is an awesome feature they included in a factory machine. Now behind the transmission, they beefed up the drive shaft about 20% thicker there, and then they strengthened the rear diff case and the gear set. Now many people were upset that Dodge did not give a manual transmission option on such a unique race car. but they elected against it because they said with this much power, you would have to be rebuilding your transmissions every couple months just from the dropping of the clutch and everything. In addition to that, it is not an easy task to get the 0 to 60 times that this can do on a well-prepped surface with a well-trained driver. It takes a lot of practice and work to get there to where an all-wheel drive car can just floor it, take it, and hit those numbers consistently. This cannot without doing practice and getting things kind of set up properly. I will say though that the automatic transmission in this thing is just flies through the gears, especially when you launch. It just the power band just coming in at almost any level is just nuts. So we're going 40 here. It just doesn't give up. I cannot help but smile. That is nuts. Now another big thing is the braking. It does have the Hellcat brakes up front, but they did change the rotor to reduce weight up there. But with these massive sticky tires in the front, when you step on the brakes, it pulls pretty hard left or right. So just keep both hands on the wheel, drive under control. Now the drag radials on this are the most important factor of getting your 840 horses down to the ground, launching you forward. And it's just shocking how much grip these guys have for that power. You can still get a little squirrely, but the rubber compound in these tires has a physical limit of 15 degrees Fahrenheit, where colder than that can start cracking and destroying itself. Now, while the tires are the Demon's strength, they also are its weakness, and they were made specifically for this car, but they have a physical speed limit of 168 miles per hour, and that is where the car is electronically controlled to not go above and beyond. So the Hellcat is faster, but this car is quicker. Now, in the real world, most people do not have daily access to a strip, but the incredible part of this car is that it performs well off of the track. The leather and Alcantara seats are incredibly plush. The sound system sounds incredible if you add that back in. If you didn't step on it and get that neck snap, you wouldn't know that this has the power that it has. Now, a lot of that comfort comes from the fact that the suspension in this is not stiff and track-focused suspension, but the Bilstein active dynamic shocks will lock up when you go into the drag mode and then add that stiffness for that rear weight transfer. Now, typically I'll leave it in the auto on the SRT mode, only go into the drag mode when you're actually at a track and needing what that's capable of. You'll instantly feel the AC click off as it starts using the AC to cool the engine instead of your cab. So it starts getting a little muggy inside. Your brakes, your steering, your suspension, everything kind of tightens up for that actual launch. Now, this came out before the TRX had been announced, but it does share a lot of the same characteristics of that thing. That's a truck and crazy fast, but this is a whole nother level of launch. Those ships! I cannot wait to feel the power of the Demon 170. That thing. One of the most entertaining aspects of the entire Dodge and Demon vehicle is all of the legal Easter eggs and loopholes they did to get this car to where it is. So first off, the drag radials we're running are hot weather summer tires only, and they are not equipped for rain. So for Dodge to protect themselves from somebody taking this out in inclement weather and just being an idiot with it, as it will throw itself off the road or hydroplane, they went through and had a disclaimer document requiring the person to sign off they understand what they are buying and what the capabilities are. I understand I will not drive in the rain. I understand I will not drive below freezing. All these specific items for this car that it's going to protect Dodge if you go and use the race capabilities of this thing on the road and get into an accident with it. But in the same time, they use this on the marketing saying this car is so powerful and dangerous that people have to sign a disclaimer to accept the risk. Now, another huge aspect that Dodge touted and marketed to the full was for the NHRA, for the drag strip, any car that goes a sub 10 seconds is required to have a roll cage for the occupant safety. This car running in the 9s does not have a roll cage already installed. So the NHRA came out and said, well, hey, this car is banned from competing. So Dodge was really proud of this and using it as kind of a badge of honor, saying our production car is so fast that you're not allowed to drag race it. I can just not believe how well they got this car to contain the power that they put into it. Now, by no means is this a sleeper, but when you're driving it, it is easy to forget that this is an 840 horsepower drag monster. That's all I've got for you here today on Started Up of the 2018 SRT Demon, a beast of a car. Now, I apologize that we couldn't get it onto a track today and really have some fun with it, hopefully in a future video, but let me know if you have any questions or comments down below. I'll be happy to get back with you. So I want to thank you for your time. Have a good day. Peace.